General Kex'tar of the Sauros Military Hierarchy had seen war across 17 star systems. He had commanded fleets through the Void Wars, witnessed the glass bombing of entire planets, and personally executed prisoners with ceremonial bladework that had earned him 3 honors of brutality. Nothing, he believed, could shock a warrior of his experience. He was wrong. The invitation to tour the Terran Naval Academy had seemed routine, a diplomatic courtesy between allied species. General Kex'tar expected to see primitive training facilities, perhaps some quaint human customs around military education. What he found instead would haunt his sleep cycles for years to come. "Welcome to the Academy, General," said Commandant Rebecca Torres, her crisp uniform and warm smile masking what Kex'tar would later describe as the most terrifying predator I have ever encountered. She was barely past juvenile age by Sauros standards, yet carried herself with an authority that made veteran warriors step aside. The tour began innocuously enough. The physical facilities impressed him. Humans clearly took their military education seriously. But it was during the first classroom observation that Kex'tar began to understand the true horror of human military training. "Today we're studying the Siege of Stalingrad," announced Professor Williams to a room full of human cadets who couldn't have been more than 20 standard years old. "Can anyone tell me why the German forces failed to adapt their tactics to urban warfare?" The responses that followed made Kex'tar's scales crawl. These children, for that's what they were, dissected military failures with the clinical precision of master strategists. They spoke of encirclement tactics, supply line vulnerabilities, and psychological warfare with the casual familiarity that Sauros youth reserved for discussing mating rituals. "Cadet Morrison," the professor continued, "walk us through the tactical decisions that led to the failure at Normandy Beach. From the German perspective." Without hesitation, the young human began outlining defensive strategies, discussing how to maximize casualties among invading forces, explaining the psychological impact of machine gun nests positioned for optimal killing efficiency. The other students took notes, asked clarifying questions about murder rates and ammunition conservation. Kex'tar leaned toward Commandant Torres. "Do all your youth study historical battles in such detail?" "Oh yes," she replied cheerfully. "By graduation, every cadet has analyzed over 3,000 military engagements. We believe in learning from failure, both our own and others." The next stop was the Strategic Planning Laboratory, where teenage humans hunched over holographic displays, designing planetary invasion scenarios with the enthusiasm other species reserved for recreational activities. Kex'tar watched in growing horror as a group of 18-year-olds debated the merits of orbital bombardment versus ground assault for conquering a fortified world. "The key is breaking their will to resist," explained Cadet Sarah Kim, manipulating a 3-dimensional tactical display. "If you destroy their infrastructure but leave the population intact, they'll eventually surrender rather than face starvation." "But what about civilian casualties?" asked another cadet. "Acceptable losses," Kim replied without emotion. "The goal is victory with minimal resource expenditure." General Kex'tar's throat pouches began inflating involuntarily, a Sauros stress response he hadn't experienced since his first combat engagement. The weapons laboratory proved even worse. Human cadets, barely past adolescence, designed theoretical weapons with the same casual attitude their peers might discuss weather patterns. Bioweapons that targeted specific genetic markers. Psychological warfare techniques that could drive entire populations to madness. Nanite swarms capable of consuming enemy vessels from within. "Of course, these are just academic exercises," Commandant Torres assured him as they watched a 17-year-old explain how to weaponize a species' own immune system against them. "We would never actually deploy such things." Her smile suggested otherwise. The final presentation broke what remained of Kex'tar's composure. A group of cadets had been tasked with developing a strategy for conquering the galaxy with minimal human casualties. Their solution involved turning species against each other through carefully orchestrated false flag operations, then offering peacekeeping services to the survivors. The presentation lasted 23 minutes. The strategy was flawless. General Kex'tar left Earth that same day, filing his report from the safety of hyperspace. His recommendation to the Sauros High Command was brief and urgent. Never, under any circumstances, should humanity be considered an enemy. The alternative is extinction.